What is going on, all you Pokemon collected maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and 2 years ago, I came up with this crazy cockamamie idea to invent my own fictitious Pokemon index funds. And I thought it would be a ton of fun because I don't just invest in Pokemon cards, obviously. Like, I'm big in the stock market, real estate. Me and my wife own our own vending machine business, so I am very much an entrepreneur in many different senses. But in this instance, I thought, I have always been a big believer in the buy and hold strategy. And so I thought it would be awesome to kind of watermark this moment and decide, let's build some index funds out. And we did a ton of cool index funds. You're going to see some graded cards, you're going to see some ungraded cards, you're going to see some sealed products, some Japanese, you're going to see the Ultimate Pikachu and Ultimate Charizard list. Like, we have some really cool indexes that we created 2 years ago. And now that we're in the middle of what I think is a little bit of the market softening, right? If you watched my video on Friday, we've seen what's going on in the Sword and Shield space. We see the pattern that those singles cards are modeling, which we've seen in the past, which indicates the market might continue to soften a little bit. If you watched my video on Scarlet Violet on Monday, where we saw that the aggregate of the Scarlet Violet singles are down 12.3% month over month, like, we feel like that market's going to soften a little. I truly believe, and I know I'm probably the only one who believes this, but I do believe Pokemon Company International is going to make good on their promise to do a ton of reprints. I think we're going to see tons of Scarlet and Violet, not just in the near future, but also probably more likely in the next 4, 5, 6 months, which I think is going to continue to put pressure on these cards. And so that's why I thought this would be a really cool moment to do a 2-year look back on how these index funds have performed, because this is hopefully going to show you that even if you don't make the right decisions, because there are some sets in here, there's some aggregate groups in here that don't make a ton of sense, but even though they don't make a ton of sense now, guess what? They've still performed incredibly well. It is wild, over the course of time, traditionally, things like this, they're going to be okay. So don't get caught up in these short-term ups and downs and all of that. I love this hobby, okay? And I love this hobby for multiple reasons. The most important reason why I love it is because I can enjoy it with my family. I love ripping packs with my wife and kids. We do it all the freaking time. The joy that they get, the excitement that they get when they pull anything shiny, like, that's why I do this. But it also helps me scratch a couple other itches, I love collecting. I just love collecting in general. So I have these awesome Pokemon cards with amazing artwork of characters that I love, and I get to collect them. And as you'll see, at the end of the day, they grow in value. So I mean, it's something I can do with my family, it's collecting, which I love, and it's got some pretty solid opportunity for price appreciation. I don't know what more there is you could want. So I thought this was a really cool opportunity to do the look back, and I thought this was an opportunity to remind everybody that I'm a long-term holder in this. I don't know when I'll sell. I don't know if I'll ever sell. Maybe I'll pass it down to my kids someday. But as I said, we're going to look at a bunch of different indexes, how they performed over time, and I hope you have a ton of fun along the way, because this was a very, very fun exercise. I'm actually glad I decided to do it because there's just so many cool things on here, and I think it's really enlightening too. So with that out of the way, let's start looking at how some of these have performed. And the very first thing that I did was the Charizard Ultimate Index, and I thought this would be tons of fun. As all of us know, Charizard is the main character in the Pokemon series, and it is the card that almost always commands the highest value, although right now Umbreon is kicking everybody's butt. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at the 15 highest value Charizard cards, and I wanted them in PSA holders because in my mind, in terms of long-term price appreciation and value storage, PSA is the best, at least right now. And I put some parameters in there, right? Like if a PSA 10 was greater than $10,000, I bumped it down to a PSA 9. I also wanted to make sure the population was at least 200 or more. I didn't want some card which only had a population of 10 and was never going to sell. So I put some parameters in there, but this list has been really cool to watch over time. There is only a couple cards on here that haven't seen meaningful growth. You look at the Charizard base set Shadowless, right? Not the first edition, but just the holo Shadowless card is basically flat over the last 2 years, coming in at a price of $4,166 now versus $4,055. I mean, I don't have $4,000. I wish I did, because when a card like this is flat, when you see all of the other ones going up like this, man, this gives me such an opportunity to think, man, this card could be next to see a big jump. And then the other one is the Charizard GX Secret from Burning Shadows, that rainbow card, which has an abysmally low gem rate. This card is going to do great in the long run. I'm a big believer in it. I've been a big believer in the long run, and I think it's got some upside to it as well. But then, I mean, just going up and down the list, there's just, I mean, 44%, 57%, 43%, 176% for the Charizard Gold Star from Dragon Frontiers in a PSA 9. I mean, the list of gains continues to go on and on. And again, if you had some miracle, you had $57,000 laying around, and you bought one of each of these cards back in 2023, then guess what? It would be up 47%. Now, There are some other things that have outperformed the 47% that we'll see here, but when you think about the margin of safety, I don't think there's anything much safer than this list of cards right here, especially when we see, periods of when during the pandemic, the Charizard cards went higher than anything else, right? People flock to value, people flock to big names in kind of panic moments like that. So I think these cards are going to do really well in the long run. I thought it'd be an awesome one to start off with. Now, the next one I want to talk about, remember I said even if you do everything wrong, you still have the opportunity to have awesome gains, right? Well, back then I was in love, and I still am in love, with Lost Origin. So back then I said, I am going to pretend purchase one of the top 20 cards in the entire Lost Origin series. And if you look at these top 10 or top 20 cards that are on here, over on the right, I have their new ranking. So again, this is how they were ranked back then in 2023. Their new ranking, half of these aren't even where they were before, right? The rankings have moved all over the place. I mean, there's a meaningful number of them. Let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them that aren't even in the top 20 anymore. So a lot of these cards have gone down in value too. Look at the change in price. A lot of them are down. However, if you had bought all of them and you had just sat on that list of 20 cards, all 20 of them in a binder, you did nothing else. You bought them, you put them away for $741. Those same 20 cards would now be worth $1,036, up 40%. Now, most of it is being driven by that Giratina at the very top, but you also have strong gains from the Aerodactyl, and then those Pikachu cards, they weren't overly sought after in the beginning. And it was one of the reasons I loved Lost Origin. I said, man, these two Pikachu cards are awesome. And now that VMAX is up 54%, right? The Pikachu V is up 95%. The Nessa card, I used to talk about that all the time. The Nessa was one of my favorite trainers from the entire Sword and Shield era. That card's up 47%. And you got some losers in there as well, right? You got Lost Vacuum in here, Colressa's Experiment ×2. You have all kinds of cards that lost, but because you diversified, because you bought the top 20 cards at the time, you got way more winners than losers. And again, you're still up 40% over the last 2 years, which is just incredible. The other thing that I thought was really cool to note is 3 of the top 20 cards in Lost Origin right now weren't even originally in the top 20 list. So you missed out on 3 of the biggest gainers, and in my mind, 3 of the best cards in Lost Origin that I still think have huge upside. And that's the Gengar, the Charizard, and the Pikachu Trainer Gallery cards. These cards were going for like $2, $3 each back then. It is incredible to think how everybody was overlooking these cards. Gem rates aren't that great. I know they're pretty easy to pull, but still, these cards are incredible. And still, coming in at their current price point, market value of $10, $16, and $13 respectively, I still think there's a lot of upside there. So Lost Origin, you did a whole lot wrong, and you still ended up with a whole lot right, up 40% over the last 2 years. Next, now, this is like my crown jewel. I was in love with Roaring Skies. I have always been in love with Roaring Skies. I felt like it was one of the most underrated sets. Well, at that point, I thought it was the most underrated set, like period, hard stop, I was in love with. You had Rayquaza all over the place in there. I was a huge fan of that Winona card. Obviously, you got Latios in there, like you just have all these big name Pokemon. And look at what the price was. The total value for the top 20 singles cards 2 years ago in Roaring Skies was $293. Like, that is just way too low. It was just unbelievable. So obviously we know that the whole XY era has caught fire over the last 17 months. The value of those top 20 singles cards in the whole era have been going up steadily for the last 17 months. And now the value of those same 20 cards is up to almost $700, a gain of 138%. That Rayquaza there at the very top is nipping at the heels of $200. Just an absolute, another crazy awesome example of a basket of cards that you could have bought 2 years ago that seemed undervalued, and pretty much all of them have done really well. There's only a couple. I think I only see 3 cards that are negative and 1 card that is flat out of the group of 20. So just another really, really cool example of the long-term buy and hold power here in the Pokemon space. Now, the next one we're going to talk about is the top 20 Sword and Shield alt arts. And obviously at that point, there was no surprise. There was no secret. We knew that alt arts were going to be the big chase cards of the Sword and Shield era. And they had very high prices to go along with them. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3 cards over $200, 1 over $300, 1 over $600 at the Moonbreon. Look at that Moonbreon price, $627 2 years ago. And then you can just go up and down and look at how the prices have changed. Again, it might have felt like a big reach back then. It might have felt like, my God, these cards can't possibly go any higher. These are ultra modern singles. There's going to be thousands and thousands of them in circulation because Pokemon has decided to print these sets to death. None of it mattered. It went from a total value of $3,500. Today, it is valued just over $8,000 for a gain of 138%. and 29% over the last 2 years. So this was simply just finding the chase set, if you will, if you call alt arts like a subset of the regular series, right? Like the alt arts were the chase set. If you bought the top 20 of them, you would be very, very well rewarded. And look at that. I mean, the Umbreon's up over $1,000 over the last 2 years. Just super cool. I love doing this. This is so much fun for me. Now, the next group that we looked at was the Sword and Shield Booster Box Index, right? So I said, hey, listen, what if you just buy every single booster box, just one of them, but what if you said, hey, listen, I want to have one of every Sword and Shield booster box right now as a long-term buy and hold. And you did that. Evolving Skies booster boxes were sub $400 back then. So if you had just done that, and this to me makes me think of the Scarlet Violet era, right? Like when Destined Rivals come out, I know the booster boxes are going to be stupid. I think they're going to come down in price over time. I truly do. I think the Pokemon company is going to print the heck out of that set, and we'll be able to get them at far less than the $300 or whatever stupid number they're going for right now. But if you just buy one of every single Sword and Shield, or excuse me, Scarlet and Violet booster box, we could see returns like this. Maybe not in the next 2 years, but certainly in the next 3 or 4, because these booster boxes have all just absolutely blown up in value, right? The total cost of them back in 2023 was $2,134, and now 2 years later, going for $4,570. You're up 114%. A lot of the gain coming from Evolving Skies, a lot of it coming from Fusion Strike, right? Then you got Lost Origin, which is up 130%, Chilling Reign, which is up 121%, but all of them have performed really, really well. So I thought this was a very powerful slide, a very powerful example of, being able to get booster boxes and hold them in the long run. And just, it's really hard to go wrong with sealed product here in the Pokemon space. Now, very next one was a fun one, and I did this later on. I started doing the series on the index funds, and then when we got to the beginning of 2024, I asked you, the viewers, I said, you guys tell me what other index funds you would like me to build out, and I will do that for you. So one of the most common requests was for a Master Pikachu Japanese set, which I thought, I love Pikachu. How freaking awesome will this be? So in January of 2024, I built out the Japanese Pikachu Master Set, and there are awesome cards on here. If I had to go back and do it again, I probably wouldn't have put all the Poncho cards on there. I was simply looking at the value, the most expensive Japanese Pikachu cards, but there is a high concentration of XY era promo cards in here, which I don't think is great, but I'm kind of married to this, so we're going to roll with it in the long run. But I mean, the cards have performed really well. It's crazy to think that out of all of these things that we've looked at, all of these different quote-unquote Pokemon index funds, this is the lowest performer, coming in at 31%. Over the last, it's not even 2 years, right? It's just from January to now. So you're talking about over the last 15 months, it's up 31%. So if you annualize that, now that I think about it out loud, if you annualize it, it's probably definitely not the lowest performer. It's going to be one of the highest because the other ones have an additional 7, 8, 9 months of growth behind them. So super strong performance here from the Master Japanese Pikachu set. All of these are PSA 10s. All of them came below that 10,000 mark. All of them had over 200 in population. It's just been really cool to see how they perform. There's obviously an incredible, incredible market for these Pikachu cards. And from an artwork perspective, they're just so cool. They're so fun. It almost breaks my heart because my wife is in love with these. And as I've said multiple times, I just don't have the ability to go spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a single Pokemon card. And she'd love to have them. Who knows? Maybe someday we'll strike it rich. Maybe someday the channel will get so big that I can buy this for her. We'll just have to wait and see. But super cool cards, awesome artwork, and I don't certainly blame them for being as high priced as they are. The final one on the list is the 2022 and 2021 Japanese Booster Box Index Fund. And I started this one in 2023, so we have a full 2 years worth of value on it. And it was very hard for me because I've been transparent. I'm not a Japanese collector, so finding the prices in the beginning was challenging. I found a much easier route to do it now, but even Japanese, and the Japanese market got soft there for a while. In the beginning, Japanese was incredibly, incredibly hot. I mean, those cards were going like crazy. Japanese cards were selling at a premium compared to English cards. If you don't remember that point in the hobby, I dare you to go back and look at it because it was a total different time where Japanese cards were selling at a premium to English cards. Now it's kind of diverted back and English is selling at a premium compared to Japanese, but Japanese cards have incredibly high quality. The artwork is stunning. The depth of the patterns and everything, it's just on a whole different level. So I decided to do this one on all the booster boxes that came out in the years 2021 and 2022. And for the most part, it has performed on par as all of the other ones. Not better. Even Lost Origin came in at plus 40%. Those top 20 singles cards from Lost Origin was up 40% over the last 2 years. Japanese booster boxes is only up 37%. So it just kind of goes to show you. And again, the Sword and Shield booster boxes, which was up 120% over the last 2 years. So, the English sealed has certainly outperformed this, but again, it's just another data point. Even if you had gone the Japanese route, even if you had bought in, remember at this point, Japanese was the hot ticket, even if you had bought in at the peak of the excitement, knowing that the excitement in Japanese cards for the broader market, I'm sure a lot of you out there still love it, still collect it, but for the broader market has started to come down. Guess what? Even if you did that, you're still up 37% over the last 2 years. It's just incredible. Listen, all I care about is you enjoying this hobby and finding whatever way you partake in it that gives you the most amount of joy. I think that this is awesome. If you're not in it for the money, I don't blame you. My main driver of this is sharing a hobby that I love with my kids. It's just an extra feather in the cap of the hobby that I can make money along the way. But it is very nice to know, as I'm shelling out all this cash, as I'm buying these packs, as I'm ripping them up, to know that even though I'm spending cash now, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, I'll probably be able to recoup it and then a whole lot more on top of it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments down below if you want to see more like it, if you want me to drop this series. But at the end of the day, I hope you have an epic one. And if you're at it, hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up while you're there. It gives us a little bit of a boost and it really lets me know you appreciate the work that I do. Hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everybody. Bye.